VP people.
We are your hosts, Taylor and
Enrico.
This is Unfiltered Conversations
Global.
where we have the conversations that you want to have,
But you don't.
we have the conversations that you should have,
But you don't.
and the conversations that you overall just avoid. So jump in with us today for this episode of
Unfiltered Conversations Global.
You can't shine at carnival with 200 bob. You can't ball in an upmarket place with 1,000 shillings. But if I go to a Changaden with 500 shillings, I'm king.
You Are the Bazoo.
I'm the bazoo. People have to listen to me.
Welcome to UCG, Unfiltered Conversations Global. We're very, very excited for you guys to be joining us today. We've got a smoking topic to talk about. I am your co-host, Taylor Amabwana Mendevu, and this is the other co-host,
Enrico Sura Muzuri, as you can see. And as Taylor has just said, this is a topic that it's so emotional, and when we talk about these things in the society, it's something that has affected almost all of us in the society. And I know one of you probably has someone in the house and you're thinking, what can I do? And I'm talking about this because it's something that when I was growing up in Eastlands, for those guys who know Eastlands, it's really, this happens there. On a single day, we've lost many young people because of this kind of things. And it's really personal to all of us.
Yeah, so we have two guests that are experts in their various fields. We have the wonderful young lady sitting next to me. If you'll please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Nkathan Kirote and I'm happy to be here.
Sawa.
And I am Getao Joroge. I'm also happy to be here. I'm not sure I'm an expert, but I'll try and talk about my experience, what my life was like, what happened, how it is now,
Yeah.
and hopefully it can help somebody shed some light on this issue of addiction and stuff.
For
like
sure.
that.
So today's topic is super personal. It is on drugs and addiction, alcohol and addiction and recovery, that whole sphere. And it's like Eric has talked about, it touches all of our lives, whether it's somebody in the house or a cousin or if somebody from school has died or has abused you or has these terrible things happening because of addiction. So Eric's got some questions and a way to kick off our guests to share a little bit of their story about their journey.
Yeah. I think with our guest, thank you, first of all, for just joining us for this UCG where we speak things the way they are. Mm-hmm. And I know many viewers are thinking of, okay, what is it? And the moment you start speaking, they'll very much resonate with what's going on, what's affecting them. And I know they'll be very straight on the charts and they'll be chatting with us. So I'll want our guest just to give us just a brief history on drugs and how they got into that space of addiction. And later on, we're going to, after they just give us that brief story about their life, later on, we are going to ask them just questions on various things. How some of those people who are in this space, how can they get help? How can we help change the society around this question of drugs and addiction? So I'll start with Gitao.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zay Gitao.
Yes. He looks young. He looks 16.
Yes. All right. Now we are off to a good start. I like this guy already. Okay. So where do I begin? So my drugs, the ones I used or abused, was alcohol and marijuana, weed, bangi,
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. Mary Jane sounds nice. But yeah, I used to smoke weed. When you say it in Kiswahili, it sounds really bad. Mvutaji wa bangi. That was me, mvutaji wa bangi. And, for me, I don't know. I guess I can start from the beginning. As a kid, I always thought everybody else got the playbook, and I didn't. Like, I didn't get the script of how this life thing would work. I always felt out of place. I could never strike that balance between being on top of the heap, like a loud and, rambunctious young guy, or just wanting to disappear under the carpet. I could never find the right balance. And I'll just mention this, my nuclear family, no alcoholism.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad, I think I've heard my dad being drunk once throughout my life. Like I heard, like he came home in a funny condition. And my mom, she used to drink wine in passing. My siblings, they've partied together, but no alcoholism. But for me, alcohol did something for me, or alcohol and drugs did something for me that nothing else did. And so when it worked, everything else, became secondary because this thing really worked for me. Alcohol allowed me to be a young guy. So I liked the bad boy persona. I liked being a thug, a tough guy, whatever it may be. And so part of being a tough guy was drinking, smoking, fighting. And since I was a coward, it was much easier to pick a fight when I was drunk. It didn't hurt as much when I lost.
You get the confidence.
You get the confidence. And also,
They call it liquid courage.
liquid courage. And also, you can take a few punches when you're drunk because, the feeling is tomorrow. Yeah, but it allowed me to act and behave and be somebody who I could not be when I was sober. And so I think that's what led me into addiction, because this thing was doing something special for me. And so it affected all areas of my life, because I got drunk for the first time when I was like by myself when I was in high school. And I was in high school, I was 14. So by the time I'm 14, I found marijuana, I found alcohol at around the same time, and it just made sense. And then, fortunately or unfortunately, it didn't really affect me academically. So I could still pass my exams.
Wow.
So I could get drunk. I could get drunk over the weekend, and this is in high school, and do my exam and still get, I wouldn't get an A, but I used to say, a B will get you anywhere an A will. So I'd get my Bs, so I could just, B for get by, and I could just get by on that. And so I never really paid the cost, like academically. Eventually it did get me kicked out of high school. And I flunked my physics exam. So for my O-level, they got a C in physics. I should have gotten a B, but it's because I got drunk the night before. And the guys I was drinking with didn't do physics. And I didn't realize this until it was much later at night, because I'm telling them, let's go home because we have physics in the morning. And they told me, we don't do physics. I'm like, oh, so I'm by myself on this one. So, but anyway, but it progressed. What I've come to learn now about alcoholism is, when I started drinking, it was fun. I used to party and, I could act this way. But by the time I stopped drinking, it had stopped being fun. It had stopped being fun for many years.
So it started now being something that you can not do without.
Yes. So it went, for my progression it was fun. Then it became a habit. Then it became something that I did because it was how I did life. So if I came to a function and I was looking for something, to be like, let me get a glass of something, let me get a bottle, let me hold something, something like that. So it just became a habit. And then later on, it became now a crutch. It became a necessity. I had to drink. I had to get high. And then the worst part was, even when I didn't want to, I still would. And this is something that people who don't drink don't understand. People who don't have addiction don't understand. That I would drink without my own permission. I remember being in town and I'm on Tomboya Street and I'm walking towards the wines and spirits, the back streets.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. I want to get on the matatu and go to campus. I want to get on the matatu and go to school. And I'm walking and I have my pocket money and it's like a lamb to the slaughter. I'm just walking towards the wines and spirits. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I'm going to do this. And I start drinking. And once I take a few sips, I'm like,
Let's
in
do it
Kiswahili,
anyway.
kama ni mbaya ni mbaya.
Yeah.
Now it's over. And then it's 3 days later.
Na kasi mbaya ni mbaya zaidi.
And now it's 3 days later.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't even go to Campo. I'm still in Tao. Now I have no money.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm just, for those of us who have been, I'm just operating. You're in that space of half drunk, half sober, dodging cops, being with dodgy people,
Yeah.
you know, pickpockets and people like that. You know, I often joke that when I started drinking, I used to drink in places with English names.
Yeah.
Crooked Q, JK's, I used to go to Carnival. By the time I stopped drinking, I was getting kicked out of Kwangania. If you know, you know. Kwangania means so-and-so's place, because, you know, now you're drinking in shacks. You're drinking kwa Mama Mpima, you're drinking Changa, and drinking keg. Those places have no names.
Because you could not now afford
Guys,
the...
like homemade brew, like so you just
Yeah.
cook it up in your house. Many times nowadays they'll put like ethanol, that kind of thing in it. It's very dangerous to do. It's kind of like moonshine in the US.
Because
Yeah.
that means you could not afford. You could not afford now the good alcohol.
Even when I could afford,
Yeah.
I couldn't, you know, you can't shine at Carnival with 200 bob.
Yeah.
You can't ball in an upmarket place with 1,000 shillings. But if I go to a Changa den with 500 shillings, I'm king.
You are the bazoo.
I'm the bazoo. People have to listen to me. I can shut somebody up with 20 bob. Like, pea ule mtu glass anyamaze. You know, pea ule mtu glass anyamaze. I can't say that in Uptown. I don't know where guys are drinking. I've been sober for some time. So I don't know what are the kicking clubs. But I can't shut you up with, you know, 100 or 200.
Places like Bar Next Door or...
You can't right now.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah. So even when I did have money,
Yeah.
I didn't want to drink there. And also, my alcoholism, you know, because alcohol is progressive. So alcoholism is a progressive disease. So by the time my alcoholism had progressed, it had gotten to the point where I knew I was going to black out, because I was a blackout drinker. And for most people, what they think a blackout means is when the guy is lying on the grass, comatose. But I came to learn, and actually I learned this while sober, that I was a blackout drinker in other ways, that I would drink and lose all track of time.
Yeah.
So like right now we're in Tigoni, and I'd start drinking in Tigoni and find myself in Thika
Yeah.
and not be able to trace how did I leave Tigoni. Sometimes, you know, I'd drive. And I'd be like, I don't remember driving to Nairobi. I don't remember driving to Langata.
Tell me that's not good. Just keep
Yeah.
you safe. You
You
know?
know, and you know, and by the time I was getting sober, these blackouts were happening for more frequently and for longer periods.
Yeah.
So at first I'd lose an hour or two, but by the end I'd lose days. And only alcoholics know that when you're in Tao, so you know how guys sell newspapers in Tao on the ground, and you're pretending to read the newspaper. But I'm reading the newspaper to find out what is the date. Like what date is it today? Because I started drinking on Sunday.
That was bad.
I started drinking on Sunday and I have no clue what day it is today. So I'm over there, na mabazu wenzangu, I'm taking the newspaper, and like, okay, so it's Wednesday. So what happened to Tuesday and Monday? And you can't ask people. And you can't, you know, so you just kind of, you know,
Play it cool.
play it cool. Or, you know,
So this time you're still in school or you're now past school, university?
No. So part of my alcoholism, when I said it didn't affect me academically, that was in high school. Later, it really affected me academically. It took me 10 years to get a 4-year degree.
The fast track.
Yeah. I mean, 10 years to get a 4-year degree, but it's because my alcoholism took me on quite a whirlwind. And so I got sober immediately after I left campus. But I left campus when I was 27. And I finished high school when I was 17. So so there's 10 years, 2 continents, drinking.
Lost time.
How many bottles?
I have, nobody knows. Nobody knows. You know, unfortunately, I wasted a lot of my parents' resources. Yes, because my parents paid for me to go to school.
They did love you.
Yeah, they paid for me to go to the UK. I went to the UK, I partied like a rock star, I came back to Kenya. I went to the US and I partied like a rock star. They have Taylor would know about this. They have MTV Spring Break. My Kenyan ass was on MTV Spring Break talking Kikuyu because because you know when the drinking overtakes, you go to the language that you're most comfortable with.
Yeah. And everybody's just like,
What?
Weird African guy.
And I'm even pitying him because if you come out of Kenya with the problem of alcoholism, the West really knows how to amplify that because like there's no one looking after you.
You're alone.
You're
Yeah.
alone. You make your own decision
Yeah.
and this becomes even bad.
It becomes much worse.
Yeah.
So through this journey, high school, even college, campus, did your parents know that you had this problem?
Now they do. But they did, but they thought I was rebellious. Naughty sounds like a kid, but yeah, it was like, like get your act together. Like when will you, get your act together? When
Grow up.
When you grow up,
Yeah.
we're spending this money on you, we're giving you these opportunities. And, I can say this here, if my mom watches, I think we've reconciled a lot of this stuff with my parents. But I had a feeling that I was never going to live to be very old anyway. So, because by the time I was 19, I'd been involved in so many car accidents. When I went to the US, I was involved in gun violence. I'd been in places where people were shot. I'd been pistol whipped. Like, oh man, and that thing is painful. Yeah, so I was living such a crazy and violent life. I just thought I'd die young. And somehow the devil convinced me. And I was sure I was going to die by 27. I don't know why 27 was my cutoff. So
It's actually a thing. A lot of artists at the age of 27 lose their lives because of drugs. So to think,
That's very interesting.
yeah.
so my
Look at
age.
statistics, by the way.
Oh, for
A
real?
lot of young artists lose their lives because of drug addiction at 27. So maybe the
And I was in a
enemy
rock
just
band, so
tries
there.
to use
Who
that
you rock
against us.
band?
No, I was in a rock. I was hanging out with all white people. And it was a Mzungu rock band. And I was just the hype man. I was
You were the MC for the band.
yes, I was the MC for the band to get the crowd riled up. Yeah.
Because you see, when you drink alcohol, like you feel invincible, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm loud. I came to realize I didn't need the alcohol to be loud. I'm loud anyway. But at the time, I thought I needed it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Wow.
Yeah, so I thought, so when so people would be telling me like my dad and my parents would be like, we're investing in you, we want you to be this man. But in the back of my mind, I'm like,
But I'm going to die.
but I'm going to die. I'm going to die soon
Why
anyway.
are you doing all these things?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're wasting time. I'm just going to die young. Then I didn't die. And I was quite upset. On my 28th birthday, I was quite upset. Because I was sure I was going to die young. And now I'm not dying and I hate my life.
Oh my.
But you're not drinking.
No, 28 I'm drinking.
Okay.
That was when I got sober. So, but this was just before I got sober. And I absolutely hated my life. And I didn't have the guts to kill myself. But you weren't here for this, but there used to be Utali Drift on Thika Road before Thika Road became the superhighway. There was that when it was 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And it was a black spot, so loads of car accidents. And because I was in university at Jomo Kenyatta. And I remember many times being on that, in a matatu and thinking, this guy should just lose control.
This time.
I wish this mat would crash and I would just die because I was watching my life deteriorate.
Because you could see it. You could see like,
yeah,
I'm almost like nothing.
Yeah. And when you're sober, walk into a bar telling yourself, sitaki kukunywa, na unaenda kukunywa, you're so helpless. You're like, oh my God. I'm finding myself in Kiandutu, which is like the biggest, baddest slum in Thika. I'm finding myself in Kiandutu smoking weed with criminals, with Mongeke people, thinking, this was not the trajectory my life was supposed to take. And since I can't get off this ride, God, just get me off this ride.
Let's end it.
Let's end it. But I don't want to end it because I'm still Christian, born and brought up. I know suicide is wrong. So when somebody just do it for me, it was a very, very dark place for me for a long time. And then the worst thing is I can't tell anyone. You can't tell anyone. It's just you, ni wewe tu na shetani. And by that time, I'm losing my marbles, because of the weed and the alcohol. I'm insanely paranoid. I can't be in a room that is not locked. And it seems very normal. And so I was living with this guy, he's still my buddy today. And so I walk into the flat we're staying in, and it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I walk in, I close the curtains, I bolt the windows, I bolt the door, put the padlock. And he's like, I told you you're crazy. Why'd you just bolt us in? It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But I'm insanely paranoid. I have this feeling of doom, like just something bad is going to happen to me. And I'm hearing voices by this time. And then, the blackouts are so frequent and so dramatic. So I'd come to mid-conversation with somebody. Yeah, because I'd been drinking for so long. And I'd come to, I remember towards the end of my drinking, I remember coming to in a pub, mid-conversation. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? So I'm starting to ask around, like, where am I? It's kind of a strange question to ask, like, where am I? What time is it? Turns out it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm in Thika. My last memory, I was asleep at 8 p.m. So I'd been drinking all day, and I drinking all day, and I decided to go to sleep. But I woke up in a blackout and left and took a matatu, went to Thika.
Which is like 45 minutes to an hour.
No, I was in Juja, so it's like
okay.
a 20-minute drive, and I'm in a club. I'm
Engaged with
engaged
somebody.
with people, and I have no idea how I got here. I have no money. How did I get here? I have no cash, no wallet, no phone.
But the good thing with alcoholism, like you'll never miss someone to buy you.
Well, now I'm messed up, so Jamas, you nirushie moja. If this was... Yeah, but no. So now, in my quiet moments, I'm like, I am going crazy. And I can't tell anybody that I'm going crazy.
It's the worst part.
Yeah. But now, God works miracles. So just before I came into getting, completely sober, I went to church. I went to the church of my youth. And
That part, I just want you to hold on to that part before you came sober. Because that's the next part that I think we will listen to as Joy comes and give us their story. Because now I know many viewers are just thinking, how did you get out of that?
okay.
And I know they are just
So we're
feeling
just going to
like,
leave you hanging intentionally.
yes.
Can I do the sound effects? Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, because, wow,
Sawa, Joy.
that's a lot.
Wow. That's quite a story. So, I don't think I can match up.
Yes.
Anyway, so
Joy, Gen Z?
Yeah, Joy Gen Z.
I'm
If
a
you
Gen
can't tell
Z.
by even glancing.
But I feel more millennial, if I'm being really honest. Anyway, it's because
Don't say that.
I was brought up in but I was brought up in a time when it's like the music I listen to is very like millennial. But anyway, so my name is Joy Nkathankirote. So you're wondering, I introduced myself as Nkathankirote, called me Joy. You're like,
Yeah, I'm like,
who's that?
Yeah.
I've
It's
never
still me,
heard that
it's
yet.
still me. But yeah, so my journey basically started. Some people may think it's late, but it was in university. So I remember this day. It was an evening, and we were having like one of those creative nights at school. And I remember feeling the urge to just smoke, and it had come after a while. Like say like 2 weeks, I just had this feeling I wanted to like try out this thing for the first time. And so I remember a friend was like, if you're ever ready, just holler at me. And I was just like, okay, cool. So I went to him and I was like, I'm ready. So he's like, okay, fine. So we went to this like Kachuom, Kakona.
A very nice establishment.
That's where people do drugs.
You know, and we smoked. And I was just like, wow.
What were you guys smoking?
Marijuana.
Marijuana?
Yeah,
Oh,
marijuana.
okay.
Yeah.
Not cigarettes.
Not
Not
cigarettes.
cigarettes.
And I remember feeling so
Carniva.
good
Sativa.
at the time. My body was just, you know, I felt like I was very light.
You wanted to dance.
And yeah, exactly. I wanted to just move and dance, and it felt nice for that first one. And I was just like, okay, I want this high, like again and again and again. And before I had done that, before I had started smoking, I started with edibles. And so my high was different
The
because
cookies.
exactly, but
Cookies
there were
or
brownies.
gummy bears?
There were brownies.
Brownies.
Hey,
And
brownies
they're
are
like
good.
cake, so it looks so good. It tastes so good. You can't really tell if it's baked well. It's like, yeah. So at the time, I just saw this like bowl of just brownies sitting there looking at me, and I'm like, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten the whole day, so I just go like, wow, this is nice. A second one, yeah, this is great. A third one. When I'm in my fourth one of my friends is just like, hey, where? Hizo ni ngapi umekula? I'm just like, hii ni yangu ya nne. And everyone just turned, you know, to look. You know that turn. Okay.
He asked if she had any money. She said she didn't have any. And they're like, what?
You just had 4.
I just had 4 brownies. And so my friend was like, have you eaten? I'm like, no. So
Yes,
Got
I
me.
just ate 4 brownies.
no, like if I had eaten food,
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
know
yeah.
it would have been quicker to digest. So it's like, just come here, sit down here, and please hydrate. And let me not lie to you guys, 10 minutes, I was high, like a kite. I was so high. I was just laughing at like random things. I'd see the TV and I'd be like, you know, you're just like, I thought, you know, this is it. This is the high I've always been wanting. This is before I started smoking. And when I started smoking now, it became a thing. So the next day I smoked again. The next day I smoked again. Then I just kept going, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this is good. But I never really got the high from like the first time I smoked ever.
You're always chasing
It
the
just,
dragon.
exactly. So I was kind of just chasing after something like the donkey with the carrot. And it never really came to be. So I always was in denial that for me it was addiction, because I was like, you can't get addicted to a herb. It's a herb. Like,
The famous marijuana line.
I
It is
love-
herbal.
I love
It's from
rosemary.
the earth.
I was just trying to think of a song so that I could sing it, but like I'm not a good singer. Okay.
yeah. So basically, for me, it became more of an addiction when I got into an accident. So I got into the accident, and I didn't want to go to hospital, so I decided to numb the pain, and it helped.
Self-medicate.
Exactly. So I self-medicated, and I just kept smoking and smoking, and eventually the pain phased away, but it was, now I couldn't live without, you know, the smoke. So every few hours in a day I would smoke. I'd probably smoke like, and I would now smoke alone, and that's when I knew, okay, this ain't good.
Getting out of way.
Yeah, because I mean, way before the accident, we'd smoke with, you know, people around, and it would be okay. Like, I mean, it's communal, it's fun, it's cute. You know, for the aesthetic, smoke, selfies. You know, it's the new age. So it's like how, as if you can smoke, the more you can smoke, the cooler you are. And for me, I think I grew up in this. I've always been very extroverted, always the loud one, always like the complete opposite of guitar. I'd be like, you know, in the drama or music, modeling, just doing something like just to place my energy there. So finding weed for me was like a plus in the time.
It jacked you up more for those things.
Exactly.
Like, so when you went modeling or something, would you for sure smoke before?
Okay, so with work, I would not.
Okay.
Because I would get paranoid.
Uh-huh.
That's something that would come later on. Now, when it became a habit and I realized, okay, my work is not, I'm not doing well while I work or while I'm doing exams. And I noticed it would be like I'd be in school, so after class or just right in between class, we'd be like, hey, yo, let's go, grab a few smokes, get some shots at the...
The logistics of that cracks me up. Because it's like you're on a boarding school.
No, this is university. So it's very accessible. Even
Okay,
if,
sawa.
it would be like, even if you don't have money, you will find money for drugs. And that's, I don't know why, because sometimes I'd be like, I don't even have cash to buy food per se, but I'd have money to buy shots.
Ah, but that's
because of the addiction.
that is the addiction.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that
that's
is
the
it,
aspect
yeah.
of the
So that
addiction.
was like, and it wasn't just me. So, it'd be like, oh, if you're doing it together, it's better. I'm not alone in this thing. But then I started to notice that it was a problem, even the drinking, because now I'd buy myself alcohol, like myself. I'd buy myself a quarter and just drink the quarter on my own. And smoke as well. So it's like a crossfade, doing this thing together. And I'm just like, hey, what's up? So the paranoia begins, it began after the accident, but like slightly after, because now I would be so paranoid to get on borders or walk home alone. Because I think there's a part of my mind that just kind of, fear was like a constant, and I would always feel like I'm being followed.
Now, hold on. For both of you, the fear, was it of somebody catching you what you're doing, or somebody just in general, they're
Like-
coming for you?
I knew in my mind that I'm being followed by either DCI. Like I knew I was like Neo in the Matrix. And I'm being followed, and everyone around me is out. Oh, have you watched, what's this? By this guy, no, not now. The guy who acted Bruce Almighty,
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
This other one about
The
the
Truman
moon,
Show.
The Truman
Yeah.
Show. Thank
Yeah.
you. And I watched the Truman Show and I thought,
That's me.
this is me. Like,
Okay.
and we would just kind of, make that even louder, and I would feel like, hey, people are out here trying to get me, and even my family, to the point where I'd not trust my family, my parents. Nope, I'm not gonna tell them anything that's going on in my life. I was so paranoid. And then my dad caught me smoking weed in the house.
Hey. Was it good?
What?
No. Okay, so I've had my parents catch me doing things. And there's a part of it that's like, oh crap. But then there's also a part that's like,
Oh no, that was the worst.
Okay.
Because he had
Okay.
on several occasions told me, do not smoke in the house. Stop smoking in the house. So this time he finds me, and I'm not alone, I'm with two of my friends, a lady and a guy, and he's pissed. Let me tell you, he's pissed. To the point, he chucked his belt and bet me at 21 years of age. Yeah. He bet me, he slapped my friend and held like the guy.
A true African
You're
father.
bringing a man into my house and smoking this. He was so angry. He was so, and I had not seen my dad that angry. And this time was like COVID. So there's a lockdown. And it's about like 9:30 and the curfew was 10. And he kicked me out. He kicked me out. He told me, get out of my house. Leave.
hey.
And I left, and I'm thinking, if cops find me on the way, like, I don't even know. I would not know who to call.
You just smoked, so you're super paranoid.
Exactly.
And now you're about to be past curfew outside in Kenya.
Yep. And I just went with a prayer, and I was just like, God, please, today is not the day I get caught. Today is not the day I get caught. No, I refused. So I was just like, yeah, I'm going. And I gathered all the courage I could, and I went to my friend's house. Eventually, I smoked even more because I was angry that my dad bait me.
I'll show him.
You know, I was just like smoking, and I'm
don't
like,
care
you
now.
know, I was so
Come on,
angry.
buy.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was so angry, and that also led to more drinking, which now I would just buy drinks, and I'd be like, ah. By the time you're getting to a place where you're drunk, you're buying more, and you're just like, I remember this time we bought more alcohol, and it broke, and I was just like,
Just stared at it.
Did you beat the guy who broke it?
That's a
It sounds like that was my reaction.
That's a gold mine.
you know, because there's nothing, like, you can't do anything. You're just looking at the alcohol, like, this is money.
This is what we
You
had.
know, this exactly. I don't even think we had food per se, you know, to share and all that, but we're thinking this is alcohol and it's gone.
You know, I'm laughing. It's because, you know, you were talking about how when you'd be broke, you don't have money for food, but you have money for drinks and
Yeah.
money for weed. And I remember among my friends would be like, Missy Mamako, I'm not your mother. I don't buy you food. I'm your drinking buddy. I buy drinks.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
mother buys you food. I don't buy you food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So eventually, I was just like, I kept feeling every time I would smoke, I'd get to so much depression, and I'd just sit with myself in the dark, and I'm like, what's really going on? And the more I felt this depression, the more I chased the high. So I got to a place where
So your father has gotten rid of you.
yeah.
Did he get to a point where he called you back, or
I called
that
him.
was?
There was no way my
You
African
called him?
father was going to call. So it took me like a month, probably, because
You didn't
like
care.
a week later, my mom is calling me and she's like, "Have you apologized to your father?" I'm just like, "Eh, Mom, I'll call you. I have an assignment." And I just hung up the phone because I'm like, you don't even want to know my side of the story, you know, which really I think was pride at the time. And eventually, I did have to call I texted him first, and I was just like, you didn't have to beat me like that. Because I think for me, it was more of,
The Gen Z
Like,
spirit. We should
why
have a
are you
dialogue.
beating me? Like, that doesn't help me, you know, stop this thing. It's not helping me. But eventually he was like, you know, I love you, and it's not, we talked about it. Yeah, and I got to a place where I'm like, okay, I need to forgive him and forgive myself. I was still smoking even when we had that conversation. And the truth is, it just kept going. And I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to stop. So you either love me like this, or you now completely like get rid of me. And he realized he's going to lose his daughter. So he had to like take a step back. I was like,
Oh, wow.
okay, fine. You're still my daughter, but ata itaisha. It will also, you know, come to pass. It will end at some point. But I was so relentless, you know. I was like, I want to smoke. Like, I was such a stoner, but if you ask other stoners, they'd be like, nah, she's a baby, you know. And to me, because I smoked for so long, on my own and with people, but with people, it felt better. And so I remember this time I was at Kentmere. A friend of mine brought me to Kentmere.
You guys are
It was my
smoking in
birthday.
nice places.
Yeah. And I was at Kentmere, and I remember he left. He left because I told him I wanted to be alone. And I remember waking up at night and hearing voices. And I remember, because Kentmere has like fireplace inside the room. So I remember hearing, they want to kill you. I really genuinely thought I was going to die because I kept hearing voices telling me that I'm going to die.
The voices never say good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up with these voices?
I'm just like, and I'm in
Positive
there,
affirmation.
and I keep
Let's stop.
leaving the room just to check my surroundings, and I'm like, where am I? What's going on? Why? I was really panicking because I'm just like, I actually feel like I'm dying. And the fear is growing and growing and growing. And I hear the voices, they're laughing. They're actually mocking me. And I'm just like, wait. So at some point, it's like I had to cry out to God. because I'm crying now and I'm like, just calm this down. I don't want to be this high anymore. I'm done. I really want to quit. It was so bad. So I go back to bed and I'm like, this is not real. It's not real. The voices are not real. And it's like a moment where my spirit kicked in because, and kind of just shielded me. And the Holy Spirit actually just held me. It's like, just sleep, keep breathing. And I started breathing in, paying attention to my breath. And I'm like, okay, this is not real. Nothing is. And this happened straight for like 2 hours where I keep running in and out of my room thinking people are going to murder me or this house is going to explode. I don't know why that was happening. And other scenarios where I'm just walking home from school and I'm really thinking somebody's following me. So I'm picking up my pace and I'm like, I was in panic mode. Like often when my paranoia started, so I just kind of realized this is bad. So when I decided to stop, that was the hardest because now I'm angry. I haven't even spoken about like drinking. I used to get so angry. I'd also pick fights, or if somebody in my group is hurt, I'm like, who is hurting my friend? Come deal with me. Like, I'm so tiny, but I promise you, the voice I use will make you rethink and think, this girl will probably fight me, And I remember this one time a guy, like, I threw a punch to this guy and he tried to like throw one back and he missed because a friend, held him back. And I knew if that had gotten to me, wallahi, I'd have just died. I'd have probably like fainted or something. But every single time I was either smoking or drinking, I would just get angry and I'd have this like, anger spirit. And I noticed that was a thing, like in setups. You just realize when people are drinking, all of a sudden there's a fight. And you're just like, wait, what's up? We were drinking well, and then now there's a fight.
Because I think most guys get emotional and they start now experiencing the emotions.
No, but it's also, alcohol doesn't bring out the best in people.
Yeah.
So generally, like if you are in drinking circles, violence is a part of your lifestyle.
Whether it's violence or drama.
Yeah,
With
violence.
women, it'll be drama. Like proper drama.
I didn't
You
drink a
stole
lot
my
with
man.
women.
For women, it's proper drama. And of course, I think for men, it'll be violence. So when we drink both men and women, you'd notice like, wow, there's so much anger in
Yeah.
Why are you talking with my man?
Exactly. Yeah, and I actually started to kind of research about that. And you see the way there's idols, is also like a god of the night. Mm-hmm. And this god of the night, he roams around like places where people are drinking or partying and feeds off of that energy. So whenever there's fights, whenever there's abuse, rape, stuff like that happens when there's drugs involved, he feeds off of it. So by the time you're done, you're feeling so drained. But you're not realizing, I'm giving my energy to a certain entity. And you don't really know it. And people my age, youth, they don't understand and know this. That's why we find ourselves, observe, especially during full moon nights. Clubs are full, packed. Why? Whenever there's a full moon, energies are high. The water in the ocean also rises. So energies are high. If your emotions are high, that means if you're not stable, if you're always angry, that's where you're going to be.
Maybe you're high, maybe you're drunk, your inhibitions of drugs. You're willing to punch that guy that looked at you funny. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
All of a sudden you
Yes.
feel like,
I'm invincible.
I am completely
always
invincible.
gonna be like-
And
it's
so
like-
does he.
Yeah, you're both like, we can do this.
Yeah, we can do this.
It's always going to be
fighting in
like
slow
that. So
motion.
if your energy, if your emotions are high, they'll be heightened. If you're a happy person, you'll be a happy person. But if you're a really sad person,
It goes down.
It's the same. So I just observe that maybe later on in your own time. But yeah, so that was my life. So I started kind of just getting into like awakenings, spiritual awakenings, and I realized the more I drank and stayed in such spaces, the more I would see things, and I was just like, how am I here? Who am I? Like, I would be like, God, I know there's a purpose for me, but like, why am I stuck here? And the thing is, I'd always find myself just taking myself to buy. Or even to the point where now I made the conscious decision. I'm like, I'm quitting smoke. Now people want to call me up and be like, yo, what's up? Can we come to your rooftop? I want to, nataka kuchoma. I want to burn you. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, you come, but...
Last week when you were broke,
there was
no one.
Nobody. No one's calling your phone when you want a smoke. But the moment you choose to stop, it's like...
There's everyone.
It's like the enemy's like, okay, so let's see if she's really going to stop or not.
Well, yeah, because there's the spiritual aspect of it. That when you get sober, you decide to change your life. We have an enemy.
Yeah.
That one is not theoretical, and you get that people buying you liquor.
Yeah.
Buying you better liquor than you ever drank. Like 2 weeks ago, I was drinking Changa, and now somebody's over here buying you Johnny Walker.
Man.
I'm like, I got sober like 3 days ago.
Like, I'll start again. I'll just start again tomorrow. Yeah. So it was very, I think for the longest time, I refused to admit to myself that it was addiction.
Yeah.
Because I was like, nah, I can't be addicted. It's not me. Like, I'm in control. Like, I know my drinks. I say stop when I stop.
And most people normally tell themselves, like, we are in control of this until you get to realize you're not in control.
At all.
And you haven't been for a very long time.
Yes.
Exactly.
But also the point is, if you're trying to control something, chances are it
You
was
don't
out
have
of control.
Yep.
Because people who are in control of their drugs and alcohol don't have this conversation.
Yeah.
Because they're in control.
People who are social drinkers, people who have a glass of wine with dinner or a beer watching a game, they never think, I should control this thing. And if you talk to like people who don't have a problem drinking and you ask them, when's the last time you had a drink? I don't know. Because it's not an issue. Yeah. So like I know when I had my last drink.
Yeah.
Because it's an issue.
Yeah.
People who don't
remember
have
too.
drinking issues,
They don't
I think
remember.
I had a beer
Like,
2 weeks
Yeah.
ago.
And I have it probably
Yeah,
frequently.
I had one or maybe
A
I
wine.
had two, and they can leave half.
Or I opened my fridge and there was some spoiled juice. I didn't know it.
Yeah, and they can have half a beer.
Yeah.
Those are the weirdos.
So, hey, guys, we're just in a very hot space where we're talking about these vices that are in the community. And at least there's some questions that like people have been asking, and because we've talked about something, I know like there's one that is directed to you, guest, that says to our guest, can you share your experience with addiction and what you've learned along the way? So it's more like, what have you learned along the way in this journey of addiction? And my co-host...
But we're letting them, everyone is hanging.
Yeah.
You don't know the rest of the story.
Yeah,
How they're sitting here.
we are coming to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we are coming to that. We are just jumping something in as they've talked. What
So
have they...
Before you get sober, what are you learning about yourself?
Yes.
Like,
Oh, when I was drinking?
yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
You weren't finding yourself?
No, man, I started drinking when I was 14.
Wow.
I started drinking again high when I was 14. I didn't know anything about myself. All I knew is if I feel good, I drink to make me feel better. If I feel bad, I drink to stop me feeling bad.
Yeah.
And I never went to any sort of depth about, is this depression or is this self-pity?
Why am I feeling this?
Why am I... No, Sangap. Sorry, man. If the concept of being self-aware or sort of emotional growth or emotional intelligence, I have gotten while sober.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's good research to suggest that for addicts, and that when the alcohol or the drug starts working, that's when your maturity stops. So I started drinking at 14 and it started working. So I stopped at 14. So in a lot of ways,
It's very hard to graduate campus at 14.
yeah, I'm growing up from 14. The time that I've been sober is now that I'm growing up from a 14-year-old teenage boy. That's when I'm learning a lot of things.
So in that state, there's nothing that you can learn at all. Yeah.
No.
Because that time you're like 20.
And also, I'm using this thing, now I see it. Then at that time I didn't see it. So, like let's say I'd go to a party, in high school parties and stuff like that, and there'd be alcohol somewhere, and I want to talk to a girl. And I don't have, the courage to do it. And I drink something, and now I have the courage. And then I go and say
even
absolute
recite a poem.
nonsense.
Your smoothest line.
But it's my smoothest line. And all I remember is I was smooth.
You don't care.
Whether or not it worked. I don't have the memory of the feedback from the lady. But my point is that I used these drugs and alcohol as a crutch. So it impeded my growth. It impeded any sort of like mental maturity that I would have had. So when you ask me what was I learning when I was getting high,
There was nothing.
I was learning how to get higher.
You've heard that.
Learning how to get
heard
higher.
that. You've heard that. And the other thing that they've asked
hold on.
is,
Not
Thank
Joy.
you. Okay, so I think I used to do yoga at the time still. So I would argue that I was actually in a woke space in my life, enlightened, because I'm practicing yoga. But really, it's counterintuitive, counteractive, because I'm doing yoga, but I'm also doing a very low vibrational drug. So it's like, how am I helping myself? Yeah, I learned that I can be a very ugly person with drugs. That's what I learned. I also learned that emotionally, if I don't deal with something, then it will come out during that worst time. You see, so a lot of, I think for me, because of this being, growing up in a generation of like the internet and all these things, mental health.
because you've said yoga, and I know many Kenyans, for us who are millennials, I don't know what was your sport?
Me, I'm not a millennial.
Okay, Gen Z. You already said at 27.
I am not a millennial and I am not a Gen Z. I am that one before. And I was doing no sport.
Yeah.
I was doing no, man.
So, the yoga kind of helped me balance, you see, the drugs. So anytime I do yoga, it would be easier to manage my highs in that.
Man, you really were woke.
It's true.
If I had a smoking body like you, and maybe I would have gotten some positives out of my experience.
Because the blackouts for me weren't really blackout. Like I would go a whole night.
You still remember yourself.
And I remember this happened. What I would not remember is people's names, people's faces I would see, but like names, would have a whole conversation with somebody, and then we meet next week and I'm just like, what was your name again? And they're just like,
That happens
what do
to
you
me
mean?
sober.
There's
That is
no
a
hope
common
for you.
problem for me.
No
I
hope
walk
for
around
you,
church and
madam.
I'm like, hey, buddy. And it's like, I know we had a half-hour conversation last week. I am terrible. And I have to like trick myself into remembering. So, hey, even if you're not.
Oh, it was definitely,
how are you?
Yes.
it was
You always
definitely
call
a
me Kaka.
problem.
Yes, it's to avoid like this person knowing that I've forgotten them.
The name.
Yeah.
It was definitely a problem, but I would notice people would take it personally because they know me, or rather they remember my name, they remember the conversation we had, and I'm just like, drugs. I was high. I'm sorry. Like, apologies. Can we start over? My name is, because at the time I'd be like gone and you'd be up there. And your ego is, it's working for you at the time. It's just like, this is what I do. This is who I am. Really? That's who you are at this point in time. And a lot of my own personal experiences were either heightened or lowered by drugs. So what did I learn? I really learned just that my emotional state can be very ugly. And it was not going to be solved by doing the same thing. So the drinking, the smoking, it wasn't really helping me to, become better.
That had to stop.
Exactly, that had to stop because it's like a cycle. It's like a mad cycle. And you're doing the same thing thinking, this is different, But it was never really different.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really key in both of your guys' stories is how important avoiding emotion was.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel ...
Yeah.
And the further you get into the addiction, the more prevalent that is, because it's not like you don't know you've disappointed your parents or that you're fighting with your friends or that you could have had that, but you didn't go that route. Like all those things just weigh on you more. So then that moment of sobriety where you're like, I'm not drunk. Oh man, my parents, no, I gotta
Exactly.
get
You can't
something.
deal.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, it's like and then, so it was very interesting and common to hear that being a key part of your guys' journey into the addiction was that I don't want to feel these things.
Yeah.
I want to, and there's interesting that there is that focus on like ego, like I want to be great, whether it's with women, whether it's on stage, whether it's X, Y, Z. It's like, and this will make me great. So I'm
Gives you
going
a
to
boost.
take this and make me more than I think I am.
And the thing is, in your mind, it works.
Yeah, it
It
does.
works because
like
it
you said,
alters
like-
your reality.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you don't even get the feedback. The only thing, like you were saying, the only thing I remembered was that I was smooth.
Yeah, I was smooth
From
with
my
this
own
chick.
perspective.
So did you get her number? No.
No,
Do you
but
remember
I-
her name? No.
But I told her her slippers.
Yeah, but I told her something.
She's wearing boots. Yeah, but they were nice slippers.